Lately, I've been reflecting on why I really started my business and thinking about sharing that story more. Because for a while, I thought that I had to keep talking about my 15 years in corporate in order for people to understand my work and what I'm trying to do. But the truth is that I don't want to keep telling that story. I don't want to keep talking about corporate or my experience there. I'm sure at times there will be references to things I experienced in corporate, because again, 15 years, that's a long time. But the truth is that I want to share more about my journey, my transition from corporate to entrepreneur. Hey there, I'm Kathleen, and as a transition strategist, I help high performing women, primarily Black women, navigate life and career transitions with more ease and less chaos by deepening self trust and realigning with your values. And one of my core values is authenticity. What feels more authentic and more important at this time is sharing what I've been up to since I've left corporate, sharing more about this transition. Because betting on myself in this way has been one of the hardest, one of the most humbling, but also one of the most liberating decisions that I've ever made. And I know I'm not the only one who's trying to figure out what it looks like to build something real, something authentic, something with integrity, especially after being in environments that were none of those things. And so in this video, I'm going to share more about why I started my business and some of the lessons that I've learned in the first few months as an entrepreneur. So first, I just want to share some background information about me. I never really had a linear career. My degree is in journalism, my bachelor's degree is in journalism, and originally I wanted to work in TV production. And when those student loans came out of their, I think it was a 6 month grace period, I was like, okay, let's um, let's figure out what we need to do to pay these loans. So I took a job at a museum. I also wanted, my own benefits, even though I was still, of age to be on my parents' health insurance. But for some reason, I was trying to grow up all fast and have my own benefits and do all of my own things. And so from that first job, then I worked in visitor services. I went into events. I worked in higher education, legal marketing, tech, healthcare communications, including pharmaceutical advertising. And also within that time, I got my master's in hospitality and tourism management because I felt like I had to have a master's degree. All of my friends had master's degrees, and I was like, I can't be the only one who doesn't have a master's degree. So I worked in different industries. I had different titles. I interacted with so many different teams within different companies. But it was the same story over and over and over again. It didn't matter what industry I was in. It didn't matter what role I had. It didn't matter what city I lived in. It didn't matter if I worked with a global team or just a local team. It didn't matter if I was in person or remote or hybrid. It didn't matter. I was often the only Black woman in the room. I was almost always tone policed. I was absolutely held to different standards than some of my peers. I was expected to carry some of the emotional load of leadership who wasn't leading. And my experience, some people even called it unexpected, like my background and just some of the different industries and things that I've worked in. Some people said it was like unexpected, as if that made it my experience any less valid. And I spent years trying to prove myself, trying to let my work speak for itself because people, they were looking at everything other than my work, right? And I was trying to prove myself in these rooms that never really saw me, in these rooms that didn't really deserve me. And it really started to wear me down. And within a 5 year period, I went through 4 periods of unemployment. Now, the first one was after my dad passed away. I took some time off to grieve, but there was a part of me that felt a little guilty for not being productive. I felt, you know, I'm an adult, allegedly. I'm an adult, right? I'm supposed to be able to take care of myself. I'm supposed to have income. I'm supposed to be working. How can I take time off, even if it's time off to grieve? So that was my first period of unemployment. My next period of unemployment was at the height of the pandemic. I was laid off. And from there, I pivoted into program and project management. I was already doing that before the pandemic started. I worked in events for the bulk of my career. I was trying to transition out of events. And so the pandemic kind of accelerated that process. But for a lot of hiring managers and people that I met with, all they could see was events. And they kind of tried to diminish what working in events really means. And let me tell you something, if you have never worked in events, I don't think you realize how much work it really is. It's not just, picking out the number of tables and chairs. There's a lot of details that go into successfully producing events. But that's a whole other tangent. And then I had another period of unemployment when I survived multiple layoffs at a company, and the company went through a lot of change and restructuring. And so my role, my original department, uh, dissolved. And so they kind of reassigned the rest of us. So I was basically doing a job that I had no interest in doing long term. It was just, hey, while you're here, do this work that we need done. And so there was um, no advancement opportunities. And I decided that, listen, this isn't working. I was burning out from a job that I didn't even sign up for. And while I was grateful to have the paycheck, I'm like, it's not just about the paycheck. I'm burnt out. So I was part of what they were calling the Great Resignation because they were expecting me to keep doing more with less. And I'm like, this is going nowhere. And then the fourth period of unemployment, in my words, I was pushed out by somebody who was threatened by me. And because I didn't know my employee rights until it was too late, I basically left with nothing. No severance, barely qualified for unemployment. And that for me was the final straw. So throughout my corporate career and most of my life, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I had done everything quote unquote right. And I had the resume, I had the degrees, I had receipts, and I had the work ethic. But in some environments, that still wasn't enough. It will never be enough for people who don't want you in those environments or for people who feel threatened by your existence. Because for some people, instead of focusing on themselves and becoming better themselves, they'd rather use their energy to push people out, put people down, instead of going to therapy and doing the work in between sessions. So I realized that most of these corporate spaces, most of these traditional workspaces, they're not designed for me to thrive, for a lot of Black women to thrive. They're designed to keep us small. And we were never meant to be small. We were never meant to be palatable. We have power and we are powerful. And I realized that I spent so much time trying to fit into these systems that, that I was told that if you just do these things, then this is the life that you'll have. But I've been doing all those things and it just wasn't working out. And I know a lot of other millennials can relate to that. And so when I lost my job, I started looking at other jobs. And I started talking to some people, I started going to some webinars, and I realized that the effort it takes to just look for a new job and interview for a job and then work a job, I could also take that same energy and bet on myself. And so I didn't know exactly what my business would look like, but I just knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I can't just keep being on the same cycle and ending up in the same place. You know what I mean? And I wanted to create something that would be a safe space for other Black women and to help Black women specifically feel seen. And so I'm the founder of Genesis Collective Media, which is a platform that empowers women, primarily Black women and women of color, to align their lives and their careers and their businesses with what matters most to them, their values. And it's a community that empowers and fosters meaningful connections and shared growth so that no one has to navigate transitions alone, so that we can move through life and career transitions with more ease and less chaos. And what I've learned since becoming an entrepreneur is that entrepreneurship is really both personal development and professional development times 100. it's definitely a spiritual journey. It's a journey and it's not easy. Do I think everyone should be an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. No, I don't think so. I think I think it's difficult. And I think if you currently work a traditional job, or if you do have a business on the side or you want to start a business, leverage where you are, leverage what you can while you're on someone's payroll. So learn as much as you can on somebody else's dime, because when it's your money, it makes the stakes higher and it puts some pressure on you, on your decisions, that, it's easier to learn some of those lessons on somebody else's time. That's not to say that you're not going to make mistakes, because I've definitely made mistakes in my first few months in business. And I'll definitely create another video about some of the mistakes that I've made as a business owner. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. But I think before anyone decides to be an entrepreneur, whether, whether you're still working a traditional job and you plan to be a full-time entrepreneur, or whatever the situation is, I definitely think that you just have to be very honest with yourself in terms of, are you ready to be on this journey? Because it's a non-linear journey. There's a lot of ups and downs, and you might not be profitable for the first couple of years. So yes, for me, I think this is the best decision that I've made. And keep following along on this journey, because I'm going to keep sharing what I've learned, what I'm trying, what's working, what's not working, and yeah, see where this journey goes. I used to think that the goal was to climb the corporate ladder, but now I'm building my own table. I'm building my own ladder, and I'm still figuring things out, and I'm doing things on my terms, but with God, with clarity, and with integrity, I know that I'll figure this out. And if you're in a season of transition, whether you've just left a job or you're thinking about it or you're somewhere in between, I want you to ask yourself, what have you been carrying that no longer fits? What kind of life do you want? And what kind of life are you building? Does it reflect who you really are? Is it aligned with your values? I know it's a lot of questions. I think I meant to ask you one question, but those are just some things to think about if you're in that in-between space. And if you are starting over, or if you want to walk away from something that no longer fits, I hope my story reminds you that it's okay to not have it all figured out, because I don't have it figured out. I am figuring it out as I go. So stick around if you want to keep learning about my story and seeing how I'm figuring it out in real time. Check out my blog, subscribe to this channel, or join my email list. If you're on my list, you get all of the behind the scenes. I share a little bit more to my email subscribers. So definitely check out the description box to see how you can access those resources. Thanks for watching. See you soon.